The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? Me, you're me. Louie T, welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I'm your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Whew. What a day, what a day, what a day. Whew. All right. Good to be settled. Everything is crazy right now, but this is as calm as it's going to get with this team. This is the calm before the storm, essentially. The NFL calendar is never quieter than it is right now. So I'm trying to make sure that I temper expectations, because this is the time of the year where you allow your imagination to kind of roam free, if you will. And that's what the offseason is all about. It's building anticipation, getting excited, convincing yourself of things that when you're in your rational mind, you probably wouldn't convince yourself of. But I don't feel like I'm doing a lot of that this year. And to some of you, I probably am. And that's fine. Again, we're not always going to agree. Last year, I definitely was doing that. Big time. I ignored the offensive line last year because, John Matsko is going to just magically make sure that these guys are in tip-top shape and they're going to play phenomenal football because it's John Matsko. I mean, how are they not going to play well for him? How'd that work out for us? I totally, put faith in Carson Wentz. And again, I wasn't asking for the Carson Wentz from 2017. I just wanted 2021 Carson Wentz, the one that, was 27 up and 7 down in terms of touchdowns to interceptions. That's all I was looking for. Right? Damn near 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. That's the guy that I was hoping would show up. And, early on, it looked like we were getting some semblance of that. It wasn't 4-to-1, but it was 7-to-3. I mean, after 2 weeks of football, he led the NFL in touchdown passes, or I think he was second in the league. I think Patrick Mahomes had 5 in week 1 against Arizona, something crazy like that. But nonetheless, he was right up there amongst the league leaders in touchdown passes. So I felt really good about, Carson Wentz. Obviously, that did not work out for us. And it took a bit of convincing because I knew better. I knew what Carson Wentz was about. But I was just hoping we'd get the same guy that showed up the year before in Indy. So I was convincing myself of a number of things. Scott Turner was another person that I wasn't as low on him as a lot of you were, but I wasn't extremely high on him either. And, it's weird. He got worse as the years progressed. I thought Scott Turner year 1 was actually not half bad, considering the circumstances. We had nothing. We gave him nothing to work with. And I thought he did the best he could considering the circumstances. I thought we gave him a little bit more to work with the following year, and it seemed like he got a little bit worse. The injury to Curtis Samuel really, I thought, handcuffed him because it put you right back in the same position that you were in the year prior with the receiver position in particular. But then not only that, then you take away Logan Thomas, who was huge in 2020 the year before, and he was a non-factor in 2021 due to injuries. And so it really handcuffed him. 2022, there was no excuses. He just wasn't very good. And the offensive line didn't help. Wentz didn't help, but he wasn't very good, period. End of discussion. So I put a lot of faith in, a lot of blind faith in different aspects of this football team. I don't really feel like I'm doing that this year. I think I know who we are in most, positions. I still have questions about the offensive line. I've made that abundantly clear. Now, I said something, I believe it was last week, and, some of you made me feel a lot better. And when you made some of those points, I then went back kind of analyzed some of the things that I had said and all the moves that had been made. And then I realized this is, I'm coming to hate the phrase positional flex. I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I think a phrase that doesn't affect me at all, that I have absolutely no emotional attachment to one way or the other. Never did I think I would start to hate a word that is absolutely meaningless to me. In everyday speech, I will never use the phrase positional flex, ever. I'll never have a conversation with someone that I care about or a perfectly good stranger on the street unless they're talking about this team, Ron Rivera in particular, and positional flex. I will never use the phrase positional flex, yet somehow I think I hate the phrase positional flex, okay? Anyway, that's beyond the point, right? At the end of the day, all of that positional flex that they talk about is why they have done the things that they've done on the offensive line. For example, Nick Gates can play guard. Now, I'm not a guy that likes to disturb multiple positions to try to fix one. All right. You get an injury at guard and your center's playing fine at center. I don't want to uproot him from center, move him to guard, and now center might not be as good as it was because the guy you're bringing in isn't as good. And now the center that you took and put at guard isn't as good at guard. And so I don't necessarily love the idea of weakening, necessarily two positions when you can just deal with whatever you have to deal with at one. However, in a pinch, guard was the position that I specifically singled out. They could do things to move guys around. Even Andrew Wiley. If you feel confident about your tackle situation and the backups, worst case scenario, before you even start messing around with Nick Gates at center, maybe you take Andrew Wiley, kick him inside the guard, and you stick Cornelius Lucas at tackle, who you feel like is one of the better swing tackles in football. I said all of that to say this. There are a number of ways that they can handle injuries on the offensive line as long as there aren't, this excessive amount of injuries all at the same time. But I'm still a little skeptical on the offensive line. Outside of that, and always linebacker, but as I've said, they've diminished the position and its value in this defense so much so that I don't even really concern myself with the linebacker position and its importance in the defense and how it's going to affect us. Clearly, you want your linebackers playing well. Clearly, there are going to be situations where the linebacker is going to be ISO'd one-on-one with a running back or a tight end. Clearly, you want the linebackers to play well in the run game when they're on the field. Yeah, you want the linebacker position to perform well and carry its own weight. But at the end of the day, they've done such a good job of minimizing the linebacker position defensively and schematically. I don't even really get bent out of shape anymore about linebacker. And I'm hoping that a Khaleke Hudson or somebody like that, Jamin Davis in year 3 can step up. Maybe Cody Barton is legitimately what we need at the linebacker position. John Keim, we spoke about Cody Barton. Was it this past week, I believe? I think it was one of the videos. Maybe it was last week's show. And I talked about Cody Barton running with the twos, that I'd read somewhere he was running with the twos. And I think it was John Keim who had made mention of it. I might have read that in a tweet or something. And I was listening to Keim's podcast, one of these past few days, and he made mention of Cody Barton. And the reason that he's running with the twos is because he's still learning the defense. And this is something that I've said about the defense this year. Even though I'm not 100% sold on them, talent-wise, I think this is the best group Jack Del Rio has had to coach. I think it's the most complete defense that we've had since Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera have gotten here. With that said, I still need to see it because we're playing much better competition. And the last time we upped the competition against this defense, they fell flat on their face. So I need to see it first before I can believe it. However, I've made mention of this before, that most of this defense, these are guys that have been in the scheme now 2-3 years, right? For some, they've been here all 4 years. of Ron's tenure, in Jack. So they're really comfortable, like Kendall Fuller, for instance. Been here all 4 years. So, Sweat, Young, Payne, not Young, Sweat, Payne, Allen, Kendall Fuller, all of those guys have been here all 4 years. Young, I said that right. Young, too. He was the first draft pick of Ron Rivera in Washington. So, yeah, all those guys have been here all 4 years. So they're very, very comfortable in this system, in this scheme. And then there are a bunch of guys that have been here, multiple years, 2, 3 years. So Cody Barton's one of the few guys that hasn't been here, that doesn't know the scheme. And for the sake of the rest of the defense, they didn't want him slowing everybody else down because he doesn't know everything yet. So they had him running with the twos. That was the explanation that John Keim was given. And it makes sense. I mean, you don't want one guy pulling down the entire group because he can't communicate at the level that everybody else can quite yet. So they had him running with the twos to get more up to speed on the defense, the calls, where everybody's supposed to be. And they're hoping by the time training camp rolls around. And Jack said that this guy was a film rat. He said Cole Holcomb was one of the first guys in the building, one of the last to leave. He said that a lot of the same qualities exist in Cody Barton, one of the guys that's always in the building, always watching film. So we'll see if he's up to speed come July 27th when they hit training camp and hit the field. And is he ready to assume that position that he was signed here to be, which is the starting middle linebacker of the Washington Commanders. But I don't want to put too much into that whole situation, and we'll see what he turns out to be. I'm rooting for him. I want him to prove me wrong because I was not a big fan of his signing, and I'm not going to make a big deal out of it because they didn't pay him a bunch of money. They didn't do anything rash at the position. They moved on from one guy that wasn't making a ton of money that we had, most of us, I can't speak for everyone, most of us had rallied around and really liked homegrown product. They moved on from him for pennies on the dollar to sign another guy that didn't cost them much of anything. So if it doesn't work, it was a swapping of nothing burgers, essentially, right? We'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, I'm most excited about the prospects of this offense because even if the defense is solid, right, it's not as good as it was last year. We were one of the best, if not the best, third down defense in all of football last year. Even if it's not remotely close to that. And again, here's part of the reason why I'm not 100% sold on the defense is because a lot of what transpired last year, I don't want to take anything away from our defense. I don't want to take any credit away from what they were able to do schematically. I won't diminish their accomplishment last year. I'll just say that some of what was done last year, some of the numbers that they were able to compile were based off of other teams simply not executing. And you guys know exactly what I'm referring to. All right. When teams executed at a high level, usually they were able to move the football against us. Now, not necessarily getting into the end zone, but I mean, we watched Daniel Jones pick up third down after third down, fourth down, and fourth and sevens on us. Again, later in the season, injuries had taken effect. I get all of that. Benjamin St. Juste wasn't healthy, yada, yada, yada. We can get into specifics. It doesn't matter. We weren't able to get stops when we needed them. The Browns is another key example of that. We let them come right into Washington. Deshaun Watson had been ass all year, and we let him throw 3 touchdown passes and didn't pick him off not a single time. He hadn't done that all season long since he had returned from his suspension. We were the team that allowed him to really feel comfortable. So, again, when we needed it, we didn't get it. But, injuries definitely had taken its toll by then. But I'm not here to make excuses. Everyone deals with injuries in the NFL. You got to find a way to circumvent those. We didn't do a good enough job of it last year. But I remember Aaron Rodgers saying this, and I remember watching the film and saying, yeah, he's not wrong. He's like, they didn't do anything. We didn't execute. And he wasn't wrong. Aaron Rodgers missed open receivers. Guys dropped balls. Rodgers made wrong reads. The opportunities for Green Bay to beat us, and not just beat us badly, were there. And a great example is, remember that fourth down that they ran? They ran a little pick route, and they had Randall Cobb running down the sidelines for a touchdown, and Kendall Fuller bit the outbreaking route on the pick, and he guessed right. Rodgers threw that. Fuller hit him. He dropped the ball, incomplete, fourth, turnover on downs. We get the rock. If Rodgers just pumps that or just holds on to it and just decides to go deep, that guy's wide open by 12 yards. There's not a Washington defender within 10 yards of this dude. It's a walk-in touchdown on fourth down. But again, Rodgers wasn't in sync with his receivers. He wasn't playing well at the time when we played him. They made a lot of mistakes. We took advantage of those mistakes. So I'm not here to complain about that, but we're going to have to be a lot better. I didn't feel like a lot of I won't say a lot. Some of the third downs that we got off the field, I didn't feel like they were forced third down. It was like, oh, they didn't execute well. Jacksonville, week 1 is a great example of that. How many opportunities did they have that they screwed up in week 1? They could have put 40 on us in week 1 if we're being honest with each other. We were not great defensively in that game. But the results are what they are. They didn't make the plays. We did. We got the win. But it wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination. I could go on and on and on with that. The bottom line is, I feel really comfortable with the defense just being at bare minimum average. The offense is what I'm putting a lot of my eggs into that basket, because if they don't improve, then we're going to be right back where we've been the last 3 seasons, hovering around 7 wins. Maybe you get to 8. Maybe this is the year the bottom falls out and you only get 6. But if the offense can't improve dramatically, I'm talking about it by at least a touchdown a game. I think we scored just a shade over 18 points a game. If we can't score 24 points a game, I don't think that this team can do the things that I think they're capable of doing. We got to score points, man. This is getting out of hand now. And so I'm expecting a huge leap, because not just because of Eric Bieniemy, because again, we still don't really know like what he's going to be as an offensive coordinator. We're just assuming, and what assuming can do, but we're just assuming that because he was in Kansas City with Andy Reid for the better part of a decade, that all of that is rubbed off on him. He's seen what, putting together a winning script looks like. He's seen what a well-oiled machine on offense is supposed to look like, how it's supposed to operate. He was a part of that, a huge part of that if you listen to the Chiefs players in terms of accountability, which he's trying to instill here now. And so we're just assuming that that's just going to transfer over with him to Washington. We can't say that for sure. But what I do feel really good about, and I can't say this for sure, but this is how I feel, Sam Howell's going to upgrade the position at quarterback dramatically, which is why I feel so good about the offense and its prospects for being a much better unit this year. That's going to give us a chance to win some ball games that we could only dream of in the past 2 or 3 years. That said, Sam Howell was on John Keim's podcast, and he talked about, some of the things he learned in the offseason and how he's gotten better. And one of the areas that he talked about is the communication. Obviously, it was a lot learning a new offense, and last year was more of a number system. This year, it's more verbiage. So a lot of the concepts have changed, obviously, but most teams run a lot of the similar things. They just call it something different. You hear that all the time. That's the difference in playbooks, is you're doing a lot of the same stuff. You just call it something different. So he's like, that took a little while to master, but he's like, I'm comfortable now. Like, I don't even think about, the play calls anymore. I know exactly where everyone's supposed to be. That part I have down pat now. So he's like, that's what the offseason really did for me, was it gave me a chance to just be repetitive with that over and over and over again, calling out these plays to the point now where I've got that, which is to me the hardest part, because once you clear that hurdle and that obstacle, Now you don't have to think anymore. Now, instead of you worried about, okay, what is this guy doing? What is that guy doing? Or how do I get all of these words out and communicate everything in the huddle? If you've already got that down pat, now you get to the line of scrimmage, see what the defense is doing, kind of assess, what pre-snap reads you can get from what the defense is showing you, and identify, all right, what side of the field should I be working here? Is it a run play? Should I switch it to the other side? Right? These are the kind of checks can I make it like these are the things. Now you get to go next level when you're not thinking about something as elementary as the play call. Now you can start going to the next level, which is, all right, pre-snap reads. What are my keys? What am I looking at? This guy's coming down, probably means safety is going to be playing over that way. Means I got one-on-one on the outside over here to Terry. I'm going to take my shot. Like, these are the things you can see, right? Because you're able to scan the field, get out of the huddle quicker, scan the field, give you more time to make any adjustments that you need to make. So he was talking about that. He talked about, adapting to, the receivers. Because remember, I watched a press conference of his a couple of weeks ago. I don't even know why I was watching this. I don't even know how I stumbled upon this. You know what? I know what it was. I was on the Washington Commanders website, and when you go up there and you're looking through the press conferences, and you watch a certain amount of them, they just play the next one, this, that, and the third, and they ended up playing one of his old press conferences from that Week 18 game against Dallas. It was one of the pressers leading up to the game where he spoke and he said, I haven't thrown to Terry or Curtis or any of those guys really all year long, right? Because Sam was the third string. Remember, we had Heineke and Wentz last year. He was the third string quarterback last year. So there wasn't a lot of reps for him in camp with Terry and Curtis and, Logan Thomas and guys that are starters. He said, I threw to Jahan, when we came for rookie minis. That was it. That was my one bit of exposure to anybody that was getting significant snaps. Everybody else was dudes that are no longer here or guys that are on the back end, Diami and Cam Sims and those types of guys. I wasn't throwing to those, big time receivers. This is the first exposure I've gotten throwing them the football. So all of that is a change for him. He's adapting and adjusting to throwing the ball to these dudes. And that's a work in progress. But above all else, he's like, I'm making some mistakes, but this is the time to make those mistakes. I'm glad I'm making those mistakes now because I'm learning from them. And he's one of those guys that doesn't like to repeat the same mistake twice. So if he makes a mistake, he's like, all right, this is how I'm going to correct it. And let's make sure that this doesn't happen again. So this is the time, right? And again, this is a quality defense he's going up against. That secondary we think has a chance to be really special this year, right? With the guys that they've added, the guys that were already here. I think it's a very deep group. I think it's a very talented group. I've said this already. It's the most talented group we've had in Washington in quite some time in the secondary. You got to go probably back a ways to find a unit this talented in the secondary. Now, can you put all that talent together, find the right places for everyone to play, mix and match these parts to make them come to life and play at the level that is going to help catapult this team to new heights, not just defensively, but offensively, because if you can take the football away or you can get off the field on third downs like you did last year, it's going to give what I think is going to be a much better offense, the football back. And unlike past years where we weren't able to do anything with it, we may be able to actually turn these opportunities into points, whether field goals, touchdowns. You want sevens. That's always the goal. Put pressure on the opposing team by scoring touchdowns. But, man, if you can just score on almost every possession, you're going to really put the pressure on opposing teams regardless. So I want to talk about a couple of things. We're going to come back to the quarterback position in a second. First, let's talk about Hard Knocks because I've been avoiding this because, honestly, I don't think Washington is going to end up on Hard Knocks. But I got this really eerie feeling because the league, if they've got a volunteer, they would have announced it already. In past years, when someone has stepped up, i.e., last year, for instance, the Lions are like, yeah, we'll do it. No problems. We'll take care of it. They announced Hard Knocks in March last year that the Detroit Lions are going to be on Hard Knocks in March, right? Because they got a volunteer. They had someone step up and say, hey, we don't mind. Conversely, 2 years ago, and I did this homework because I'm like, when are they going to say something, right? 2 years ago, when Dallas was on Hard Knocks, they didn't announce that one until July the 5th or something like that because nobody wanted to do it. So they had to handpick Dallas. They hadn't made the playoffs, in the past 2 years. They didn't have a new head coach, and they hadn't been on Hard Knocks in the past 10 years, which seems weird because it feels like Dallas has been on Hard Knocks like 5 times already, but it must have been over a decade since they had been on it. Whatever the case may be, Dallas was chosen 2 years ago, but they didn't have anybody step up, so it took them a long time. That's kind of the territory that we're starting to charter into now. Nobody wants to be on it. Of the 4 teams that the league can force, 3 of the 4 have already said, hey, man, keep my name out of it. Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Jets, is like, yo, I'm good. It's a distraction. Don't want any parts of it. Let one of the other teams have it. Saints head coach Dennis Allen said, we don't need any distractions. That's a distraction, so we don't want it. So, I mean, that's as clear as it gets, right? They don't want any parts of it. The Bears, their owner has come out and said, yeah, I think one of the other 31 teams would be pleased to be up there. Meaning, hey, we don't want it. You can give it to one of the other teams. Somebody else to do it. We don't want any parts of it. And then there's Washington. Now, Jeremy Reeves is like, yo, you can keep that. We good over here. But as far as like a high-ranking official, we don't have an owner currently. So we didn't have one of those speak up. None of the front office guys, Marty Herney, Martin Mayhew, Ron, nobody said anything. No one said, even, this is when a Jason Wright would usually step up and be like, hey, we wouldn't mind, or nah, we're good. Even he's kind of mum on the situation. Maybe no one's asked him. Maybe he's kind of, steering clear of it. Maybe Ron's like, hey, if anybody asks you about it, just be diplomatic. You know how to do that. Talk your way around it. Don't answer the question. Keep it pushing. Whatever the case may be, nobody really has said anything. Now, there is Ron being on record as saying he wants no parts of any kind of Hard Knocks show. This was 3 years ago, though, when he was just fresh off the heels of the 2018 All or Nothing series. He was one of the first teams to jump into that pool of All or Nothing with the 2018 Panthers. That's on Amazon Prime, but that's in season. That's totally different than Hard Knocks coming in during training camp. It's one thing to be preparing for a preseason game and figuring out what guys you're going to keep and cut versus trying to prepare for the upcoming opponent, putting together a game plan and focusing in on the task at hand. It's 2 totally different things. And Ron experienced the extreme of trying to, and again, they try to be as minimally invasive as possible. They try not to be disruptive, but the cameras are there. Guys will, try to act like, oh, it's not a distraction. We didn't even notice the cameras there. Guys know the cameras are there. And maybe you might forget once or twice, but guys know the cameras are there. So it is, even if you don't want it to be, it is somewhat of a distraction. So I don't think Washington minds, though. That's the thing, is if they did, they could have just done what the other 3 teams have done already and had someone step up and vehemently deny wanting to be on Hard Knocks. Like, hey, let somebody else have it. We haven't done that. Now, I think the league is having a bit of sympathy for Washington right now because they're like, bro, they're transitioning with ownership right now. We really don't want Hard Knocks being there. Like, this isn't a good time. But if they're to get this thing done, and with the information, speaking of which, while we're on the subject matter, this thing is as close as you can get to being a done deal. We're coming down the home stretch. We're on third base now. We're taking a massive lead down the line. And if any contact happens, we're hauling ass for home plate. They're going to have to gun us at the plate because we're taking off and we're trying to get to home plate. So they've given us 2 dates as to when this thing could find some resolution. The first date is July 20th, I believe, that they've set up these special meetings. And the other tentative date, I think, is August 8th. So if they can't reach an agreement, if everything doesn't check out on the 20th of July, then they'll probably give them 3 weeks to get their affairs in order, and then they'll meet again on August 8th. They're trying to make sure that this gets done before the start of the season. So I'm expecting one of those 2 dates to signify the changing of the guard, get the new ownership group in here, make it official, and then, we start moving on from there. But I've already told you guys, as long as Dan isn't here, at this point, and I know this may sound crazy to some of you, they can take as long as they want now. Dan isn't coming back. He's gone, and he's not returning, okay? I don't really give a shit how long it takes. They take as long as they want, because it's not – only thing that it's affecting is the money, and which makes a difference, right? It affects, like, working out a deal with Cam Curl or Montez Sweat or, situations like that. That's the only thing that it's holding up, because you don't know what new ownership wants to do with these situations and these contracts and these players. So you're kind of trying to wait. You're in limbo. You don't want to spend money that's not technically yours. The one thing you don't want to do if you're Ron and company is piss off the new ownership group and be fired before they even get in the building. So that's the one thing that it's kind of putting on hold and pressing the pause button on. But other than the players aren't affected by this. The coaches really aren't affected by this. Like, they still got a job to do. And so it's not that big of a distraction, honestly. But I said all of that to say this. I think Hard Knocks is going to try to stay away from Washington because of the ownership situation. However, if something were to get done or they felt like it was imminent, I wouldn't be shocked if they said, Washington, you're on, deal with it. All right. I honestly think they're hoping somebody steps up and says, all right, man, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. Nobody's going to do that. Washington hasn't shot down the idea. I don't think they want them in Washington, they being the NFL. And I think HBO wants to go to New York with the Jets. And the Jets really don't have a choice. If the NFL says, okay, nobody volunteered, you got to do Hard Knocks. I think ultimately that's what HBO wants, is like, we want the Jets. We want Aaron Rodgers. We want the Jets and Aaron Rodgers and that whole situation. That's theater right there. And like I said, if I'm HBO, I'm also following Zach Wilson around, because he was a disaster last year. And Rodgers is coming in, and obviously a lot of the attention is going to be on Rodgers, but what about him? What about Zach Wilson? I think that's a hell of a storyline in itself. So it's got to be the Jets, right? If nobody volunteers, which it doesn't seem like anyone's going to do it, it has to be the Jets, right? That's my line of thinking. But if Washington's like the only team that's like, I don't really care. If you pick us, cool. If you don't, it's whatever. Maybe that's the direction the league goes in and says, you know what? They're the one that's not resisting. Let's just go with them. We'll see. My money's on the Jets still. My money's still on the Jets. So I wanted to talk to you guys quickly about the quarterback position, Sam Howell in particular, and this competition. I've you guys know just as well as I do, there's no competition. Sam Howell is going to be the starter week 1 for this team. I think he's going to be. I look at it as a Kirk Cousins in 2015 type of declaration. You know, when Jay Gruden stepped up after, I think it was the 3rd preseason game, and said, Kirk Cousins our starter for the entire season. And it sent shockwaves through the organization, through the NFL. Like, wait a minute, the whole season? Like, this isn't like still a competition? Like, there's not a chance that he could get benched? He's the quarterback for the entire season, barring injury? Yeah. Oh, okay. Robert stinks that bad, huh? Yeah. Okay, gotcha. I think that's what this is. Like, there's really nothing here to see. However, I like when players step up and identify who the guy is, because us as fans can do it from the outside, but our opinion doesn't really matter when it's all said and done. The players in that locker room hold a lot of weight, because if they feel like one or the other, one guy or the other is light years ahead of the other quarterback, it like Mike Shanahan said, you can't fool the locker room. They know. The players know. And it doesn't take them long to figure out who is who. Like, can that guy play? I remember, Brian Mitchell tells this story all the time about Desmond Howard. And I think, I can't remember who else. I think it was like an offensive lineman or somebody. It was, God, I can't remember the name of the guy. But he was here during Desmond Howard's. I want to say it's, I can see his damn face. I can't think of his name. Anyway. But when he got here, it was like the very first practice. And they already had figured out he can't play. Can't even get off the line of scrimmage. The players don't need much. They don't need much to be able to tell if a guy has it or he doesn't. They know Sam has it. And Jim Rome had Jahan Dotson on his show a couple days ago. And Jahan pretty much declared Sam Howell the starting quarterback of the Washington Commanders. Now, obviously, he doesn't have the final say-so, and there's still going to be this song and dance that they do come July into August that, makes this thing feel like a competition. But Sam's going to be taking most of the first team reps in practice, I would assume. They'll leave some crumbs for Jacoby. There'll be some table scraps there. He won't be starving over there. Get some first team reps as well. But most of the first team reps will go to Sam Howell. I'm still really anxious to see how they treat the preseason, because you're getting the joint practice work with the Ravens. Are you even going to play your starters in that game at all? If you're getting the kind of work that you feel like is beneficial and you don't need the game, which we see a lot of teams do with these joint practices, they could just not play Sam Howell. And I know that would be to the chagrin of many of you out there, because a lot of you are like, Sam needs every single rep he can get. And while I don't disagree, how valuable are those reps if the Ravens decide, and we've seen the Ravens pretty much pass on the preseason each of the last 2 years, especially when they get joint practice work in with the team that they're playing in that week's preseason game. What if the Ravens just decide, we're going to put third stringers on the field, second string and third stringers on the field? How does that really benefit you if you're watching? Now, again, you know how I feel. Anytime they put you on the field, put your best foot forward. And if they put some second and third stringers, carve their ass up. Make them look like backups. Make them look like guys that shouldn't be in the league. You know, do what you got to do. But you want that real legitimate work. And who's to say how they'll, attempt to, go after it, knowing that they got 2 days of joint practices under their belt. Do we even need that preseason game for Sam and company? We'll see. And it's going to be, I'm going to be anxious to see how they handle just the preseason in general, but that particular week in that game specifically. But Jahan was pretty adamant. Hey, we got our guy. I want you to take a listen to Jahan Dotson with Jim Rome a couple of days ago. This clip is from the Jim Rome show, and it's Jahan Dotson talking about Sam Howell. Take a listen. Oh, no. Okay. So y'all didn't hear that. I'm looking at the comment section, and y'all didn't get that. I don't know why that didn't show up. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let me see if I can just pull it up here and let you guys hear it instead of trying to be cute and pull it up. Let's see if I can just add it in here and get you guys to listen. All right. So hopefully this works. I'm about to play it here. Let's see if this works. All right, so it's not playing. And I ran out of time, so no worries. I was trying to get everything set up. I was already running late. I ran out of time, so I wasn't able to do it the way that I normally do it. So I won't keep trying. I'll just tell you that essentially, hold on. I might have one that's already in here. No, I don't. I don't have one. Maybe I do. Let's see. Let's let's try this. Let's see if that works. All right. I won't try to get it no more. So he pretty much said Sam's the quarterback. He's excited for the opportunity. Sam's come in. He's commanded the offense. He's learning how to lead. It's been tough for everybody because it's a new system. So he's had a really good offseason. And he says he makes it look effortless. He throws the football and it's effortless. And he really is excited to see what Sam can do this year. But there's really no doubt that he's the quarterback, essentially. That's what he said. I'm paraphrasing, but you know what I could do? You know what I could do? I could have just did. I don't know why I didn't just do this. Once I had trouble with it, I should have just did it like this. All right. At least I know this will work. Take a listen.
So it's always challenging when you play the first year because you make the adjustment and then you deal with some injuries. And then, by the way, you've got 3 different quarterbacks that you played with last season. That's not easy either. It looks like Sam Howell might be the guy atop the depth chart right now. Does it feel like that situation will be more settled overall this year? And how has he looked so far in OTAs?
Yeah, I think we got our quarterback situation settled. I think Sam Howell is going to be our guy. I have complete faith in him. He's a guy who I always say this. He makes throws look super effortless on the field. He's been a great leader. He's learning how to lead an NFL offense. He's just learning the ropes just as we are. Being in a new offense. So I'm super excited for him. I can't wait to get out there and just make plays for him and make his life and his job easier as easy as possible. So, I can't wait for it.
So it's always challenging when you play the first year because you make the...
So that's essentially what he said. It's not anything earth-shattering, but it's always good to hear players rallying behind a guy that's going to get an opportunity. In past years, it felt forced when it was Heineke or it was Haskins or even Ryan Fitzpatrick. It felt forced. Even last year with Wentz, I didn't feel like the guys were super confident. They just knew he was better. Wentz was better, like in terms of arm talent, all of that stuff. They just knew he was better than Taylor Heineke from the year before. But nobody actually was like, yo, this dude is out here throwing dimes or, I didn't hear like them rallying around Carson Wentz. I just heard, hey, he's got a strong arm. How many times did we hear last year? Oh, he's got a strong arm. Yeah, we know that. And anybody compared to Taylor Heineke is going to have a strong arm, by the way. So you're not saying much by doing that, right? So it was last year, the year before that, it never really felt like the team rallied behind anybody other than Taylor Heineke, to be honest with you. That was the only guy that it seemed like could rally the troops, that everybody could, say, hey, this is the guy that we feel like we can win with. I think I'm getting the sense that Howell is that guy now. Like they feel really confident that he can lead them. He's going to give them a realistic shot at winning. And again, understand that they're going to be mistakes. He's not going to be perfect. He's going to have games where he's just not very good. The defense gets after him. They give him some looks. He gets confused. There are going to be some games like that. All right. And he just won't play well. But they're going to be games where he's going to be outstanding. And this offense is going to probably look lethal, And so you take the ups with the downs, the good with the bad. And at the end of the day, I think what we'll find is that we got ourselves a quarterback. But the thing that's really frustrating about this season for Sam in particular is he's got a 1-year audition. And it would have been nice if he was going into this season with the same offense, same language, just a little bit of continuity, a little bit more comfortable. But that's not the case. And he's going to have to, put all of that aside, all of the changes. This is the one opportunity that he's going to get. Because if Ron and company aren't here and they get fired, more likely than not, the next group is going to bring in is going to try to find themselves a quarterback. And they won't view Sam Howell as the guy. So for all intents and purposes, this is a 1-year shot. It's a 1-year trial for Sam, and he's going to have to knock it out of the park. I liken it to Davis Mills last year. And Mills, I think he played a little bit more, though, in his rookie season, which is what gave the Texans confidence enough. And they stunk, and they knew they were going to stink, and they knew they were rebuilding, and they knew that they were going to fire their coach, Lovie Smith. It was all of that was really bad the way that they did things in Houston. But at the end of the day, they gave Davis Mills an opportunity. They knew he was going to fail, but they gave him an opportunity anyway. They'd spent a third-round pick on him, so they wanted to see if they could get anything out of the investment. And he went out there last year and he stunk it up. They didn't give him a ton of help. They did give him a rookie running back that played his ass off, but they didn't give him anybody to throw the football to. He just had Brandon Cooks. That was pretty much it. Like, they didn't have a lot of weapons for him to get the football to. Doesn't matter. He was garbage. We saw him up close and personal. He's trash. However, it's going to be a similar situation. If Sam gets it done, he'll be back. And, you know, we've seen guys get that opportunity that 1 year and they kill it. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast probably like 3 weeks ago. The Eagles tried to trade for Russell Wilson last year. And if Hurts didn't play the way he played this year, they probably would have been looking for a quarterback in the draft this year. And they would have had the draft capital to go up and get somebody. They were already in the top 10 because of the moves that they had made the year before. And they already had multiple first-round picks. So they could have had done whatever. That same deal that the Panthers made, the Eagles could have made that deal. Where did they pick? Were they ahead of them? I think they were behind them. Who was the Eagles' first pick? They were like 10th overall. I think the Eagles' first pick was like 10th. So they were one pick behind the Panthers, who traded up from 9 to 1. If the Eagles wanted to get up to 1, they could have easily. They had 2 first-rounders. And they didn't. The Panthers didn't give up 2 first-rounders this year. They gave up 1 this year and 1 next year. Well, they swapped first-rounders, so that doesn't even count. They just gave up 1 next year and a 2, this past draft, and a 2, next year's draft. So they could have gotten up, but they didn't have to, because Jalen Hurts, he had another year. It's really 2 years, right? But he had to prove himself, because the Eagles weren't satisfied after they made the playoffs with Jalen Hurts. They were still trying to upgrade the quarterback position. Hurts took them to the playoffs. It wasn't great, obviously, and a lot of it was off the strength of his ability to run the offensive line and the run game and things of that nature. But they weren't satisfied, and they were looking to upgrade the position. And Russell Wilson was like, nah, I'm good. Send me to Denver. And then we saw what Jalen Hurts did, and the rest is history. But this year is more like Hurts' first year as a starter. It's very similar, as a matter of fact, because Hurts only got like maybe 3 starts at the 3 or 4 starts at the back end of that first year in 2020 when he was a rookie. And he got like 3 or 4 starts to end that season. And then he started the entire 2021 season. And it didn't start well for them. And then they got hot late in the season. They kind of shifted their offensive philosophy. They make the playoffs, but they weren't impressed with Hurts. None of us were. And they were looking to upgrade. That's the situation that Sam Howell finds himself in. What Hurts did in 2022 essentially not only saved his job as the starting quarterback, but it solidified who he was for them and got him that massive payday. And now they're no longer looking for a quarterback. But last year was pretty much an audition for him, because they kept kicking that can down the road, and they kept putting themselves in a position that if he wasn't the guy, we got draft capital to move up. Well, That's where Washington is. They're not in a position where they got all this draft capital or anything of the sort, but they're giving Sam an opportunity. And if he takes advantage of it, just like Philadelphia, you found your quarterback. If he doesn't, like the Texans with Davis Mills, then you're in a position where you need to do whatever it takes to get up to number 1 or 2 and get your guy. Now, the biggest difference could be that the Panthers got lucky that in a year where, the Bears were number 1, they didn't need a quarterback. They got lucky. Because I still don't know how the Texans managed to F that up. I really don't. Still don't know how they managed to not get the number 1 overall pick. But it doesn't matter. They got lucky, did the Panthers, that the Bears didn't need a quarterback. They had Justin Fields, and they weren't going to draft a quarterback. We can't say that that's going to be the same situation next year. The teams with the first and second pick both may need quarterbacks, respectively. And who's to say? I looked at the list of all the other quarterbacks that are going to be in the draft. Quinn Ewers, Michael Penix Jr., the kid at Michigan. I'm not. And now, what the funny thing about college football is, we'll talk about all these dudes, and some guy out of Bowling Green will come out of nowhere and end up being the 3rd quarterback to be taken in the draft. It won't be any of the guys that everyone's talking about right now. I don't love any of those other dudes. Michael Penix Jr. I saw Nix in there. Like, this guy stinks. He had his moments at Oregon last year. And I'm like, this dude is trash. And he's one of the guys that you're supposed to be in this second tier that you're supposed to be getting excited about. You're right. So if you're not getting one of those 2 quarterbacks, good luck, man. You're probably going to need it. So Bo Nix stinks. We got to hope Sam works out. I feel confident he's going to work out. But trust me, you don't want any parts of any of those other dudes. You really don't want to have to go down that road. And then you get into that, because again, for those of you who think we're going to stink, there's a limit on how bad we're going to stink. This isn't 2019. Just so you're aware, we don't have one of the worst rosters in football. This isn't a situation where we could go a whole month without scoring a touchdown. We're not that bad. Not even remotely close to being that bad. It takes a certain level of an ineptitude to get to where we were in 2019. We're so far removed from that the worst we can do is 6 wins. That's the worst we can do. You're not getting this first or the second pick in the draft. You're probably not even getting a top 10 pick with 6 wins, more likely than not. It just depends on how the rest of the league does. You're probably at 10. You're probably at 11, with 6 wins. 6 wins might get you in the top 10. I take that back. I retract that statement, because we've been hovering around 7, and we've been right there on the outskirts of, the top 10. When we were 7 and 10 in 2021, we were at 11. So everybody with 6 or less losses, or wins rather, were in the top 10. Last year we won 8 games and we were 15th, 16th. So, I would assume everybody with 6 or less probably was in the top 10. So 6 will get you somewhere in the top 10, probably like 8, 9, or 10. But you're not close to 1 or 2. And if the 2 teams at the top of the draft need quarterbacks, you can forget about it. They're not trading to you. They're taking a quarterback. So I said all of that to say this. We need Sam Howell to work out for us. Okay, so those of you who want to be right, Sam stinks, this team's going to be trash, and you want to be proven right, for a change, stop being selfish and just hope that you're wrong. Hope that you're wrong and that we got our quarterback and that we don't have to keep looking. You know, and this isn't a Heineke situation where you're hoping Heineke works out, but there are limitations, but you're willing to overlook them if he can somehow just find a way to win football games. I've seen NFL teams do that. That only lasts for so long. You can only get by with a guy with huge limitations that finds a way to win, who's got moxie and all of this stuff. That only lasts for so long. You need a guy with some real talent and a certain set of skills that can get it done for you week in and week out. And Sam has those. So I like our chances with the 5th round quarterback that we got. But we'll see what happens. Let's see. All right. I see your jokes. Okay. I deserve that. I deserve that. That's what happens when you rush and you don't do the things you normally do. You run out of time. And I was already late. I should have just did it anyway. But I was like, I'm already late. I pushed it back. And I don't want to be even later than I already am. So I was like, I should be able to get away with it like this. No. It said, hell no. Oh, you know why? It all makes sense now. Duh. That's, yeah. I'm tripping, and I know better. I know what happened now with the audio. I have to put it in StreamYard. I didn't do that. I did it old school, like I was streaming straight through OBS. Duh. Okay. I was like, why isn't it working? I had a brain fart. All right. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Trevor Patch writes, over under offense gives up 48 sacks on the season. The offense gives up 48 sacks? I'm taking the under on that. That's a huge number, my guy. Our offensive line, I don't think it's going to be trash. I don't know how good it's going to actually be, but just off of the strength of Sam Howell's athleticism and ability to avoid sacks, I'm just going to say that number is way lower than 48. So yeah, I'm taking the under. If this were Wentz or Jacoby Brissett back there, guys that like to hold on to the football, yeah, 48 is within reason, but nah, not with Sam. Sam will make sure we stay out of a lot of those situations. I just hope he's smart with some of the decisions he makes when he's under duress. Throw the ball away, not taking unnecessary hits, things of that nature. He's got to be smart about those things too. But yeah, there's no way 48. That's too many. That's a ridiculously high number. And remember, our offensive line, you can't get much worse than the group we put on the field, other than, you know, the tackle position wasn't like garbage. It wasn't great, but it wasn't trash last year. So you can't get worse. But the interior was a mess. From guard to guard, it was a mess last year. So there's no way in my mind that the offensive line is going to be as bad as it was last year. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, over under offense 52% red zone conversion rate. 52%. So essentially every 2 trips, every 1 out of 2 trips, you're scoring a touchdown. Every other trip in the red zone, you're scoring a touchdown. I'm going to take the over on that. Not by much. That's high. 52% is high. Actually, you want to be close to 70% red zone. Every 7 out of 10 trips, you're scoring touchdowns. But or for every 10 trips, you're scoring 7 touchdowns. But I'm going to say we're hovering around 60%. I'm going to say we're hovering around 60%. The best offenses in the NFL probably are right around 70%, somewhere there. Let's see what that number was last year. Best red zone efficiency NFL. Dallas scored it at a 71% clip last year. Kansas City was at 71. The Eagles were at 68, and Detroit was at 66. And Detroit had the rushing touchdown leader last year in Jamal Williams, so that helped them a lot. I always tell you, the teams that can run the football in the red zone are the ones that are going to score. And you need not look any further than the top 6 teams on this list. Dallas can run the football in the red zone. Kansas City can run the football in the red zone, whether it's Mahomes running it or them, handing it to the running back. Philadelphia is one of the most prolific rushing teams in the league, especially when they get in the red zone. They were at 68%. Detroit, 66%. Like I told you, they converted a lot of rush touchdowns last year to Jamal Williams. The Giants were 64, almost 65% at 64.8%. Daniel Jones using his legs was lethal last year in the red zone. There were at least 3 or 4 games where he took over with his legs in the red zone. That Chicago game comes to mind as one of those games that stuck out. And then the Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry, 64% as well in terms of red zone conversion rate. So, again, Cincinnati, Buffalo are some other teams that round out that top 10. Minnesota, they were all at 63%. So the elite offenses are, like I said, 70%, somewhere in that neighborhood. 52 is probably roughly league average, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't think we're going to be league average. I think we're going to be slightly above. I think we're going to be like at 59, 0.7 or something like that, hovering around 60, which is a vast improvement for us. Matter of fact, while I was there, I might as well check and see what Washington was last year. We were at 51% last year. So if we were at 51 last year, then shit. And the worst team in the league last year was at 42, which was New England, 42%. So, and the Jets were at 43. So, if we were at 51 last year, I might have to push that number up then. I'll say 63%. Since we were at 50, we can't be anywhere near where we were last year. That's not okay. And honestly, I think a lot of that was probably bolstered by the early season success we had in the red zone. I like to think that early in the season we were cashing in. The first 2 weeks in particular. Hell, even the Dallas game in week 3, he throws the beautiful dime to Jahan on the corner route. I think we got down there one more time and we didn't get in there, but probably the Jacksonville game, I'd say we got in just about every time we were down there. The Lions game the following week, I think we got in every single time we were down there. And so I think you might have been like 3 of 3 week 1. You might have been 2 of 2 in week 2. And then you might have been like 1 of 2 in week 3. And you're off to like a 6. I remember talking about that. As a matter of fact, you might have got off to like a 6 for 7 start, which skews that number because there were weeks where we were horrible and we couldn't find the end zone to save our life. I'm taking the over, though. 52%. We were 51 last year. I'm taking the over. Way over. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Chris writes, hey Lou, hope you have a happy Father's Day, man. I appreciate that, man. The reason the stream was crazy today is my son has the worst stomach bug. So I just assumed it was an ear infection. So we took him to the doctor and they're like, nah, ears look good. He's fine. But this congestion that he's got going on, man, it's some of the worst I've seen in a while. Like he can't even sleep really good because he's just so congested. So obviously we were having trouble trying to get him to sleep. And so that's what took me so long to get to the stream. But I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And happy Father's Day. Happy early Father's Day to all the, you know what irks me? I gotta, I'm sorry. I have to divert for a second. I have to get on my high horse and my soapbox. I don't like the term Father's Day. Dad, so for me, father, anybody can be a father. All right. You can be a sperm donor and be a father. Okay. When a female is upset, at a man, but they're like, hey, he's still your father. They don't say he's still your dad. He's still your father. At the end of the day, respect him. He's still your father. Okay. Because that's to me, an informal term. That's the politically correct way to say it. Father, right? If you're there in your kid's life and you're a constant presence, they know you, you have a relationship, you're a dad. That's an affectionate term. So for me, when, Father's Day comes along, like, I feel like, and I think people say it in reverse, and I don't really like that. They like anybody can be a dad, but it takes a real man to be a father. No, I think it's the opposite. Anybody can be a father, it takes a real man to be a dad. Okay. So should be Happy Dad's Day. Okay. But anyway, I digress. Happy Dad's Day to all of you out there who are taking care of business, holding it down, and being a constant fixture in your children's or child's life. All is well with the family. Yeah. Other than my son, having this crazy congestion. Everything's good over here, man. So I appreciate that. Hope all is well with you and the fam. How do you think Bieniemy will use Antonio Gibson as a wide receiver to take advantage of his skill set and help maximize this offense? So if you really want to maximize AG, you're going to have to use him as a receiver out of the backfield. So that could entail him starting at the running back position and then you motioning him, getting that one-on-one matchup with a linebacker. But you can't just send him out straight to wide receiver unless they try to match personnel. So they look and see how many backs you got on the field, and you might have two backs on the field at once. And so they may put, an extra backer on the field thinking, okay, they got two running backs on the field. But most of the time when teams do that, when they put two backs on the field and they're not like one of them isn't a fullback, they're trying to spread you out. So you may not get the matchup you're looking for with that kind of personnel, So I would personally, use him in a situation where you motion him out, or like we did in week 1 against Jacksonville, he ran a corner route from the running back position. They didn't motion him. They didn't do. He literally seeped through the offensive line, got that one-on-one matchup, and then ran that corner route in zone coverage and was wide open. Like, you're going to have to utilize him in that capacity, I think. And, there'll be times where you'll be able to split him out, send him in motion. But I think the biggest thing that they have to do is try to create those mismatches, and I think they can do the same thing with Curtis Samuel, line him up in the backfield, try to get him in an advantageous situation and then take advantage of that. But for AG in particular, I think that the matchups that you're looking for are against linebackers. That's what you want him to be able to feast off of. And I can tell you this, the screen game is going to be, a much more significant part of this offense. And Antonio Gibson is probably the best screen back that we have currently. Now, Brian Robinson is cool, but he ain't the home run threat that Gibby is. And we saw what he was capable of. And I'm thinking that's what Bieniemy is going to look at, is that Buffalo screen from 2021 where he takes that bad boy to the house 75 yards. And he's like, okay, we need to make sure we get him in those situations. And there were some games last year where I got excited with Antonio getting the ball out in space. The Green Bay game, I thought his best game of the season. I could be forgetting, one of his other performances. I thought his best game of the season was the Green Bay game last year. I thought he was really good early in the season, the Jacksonville game in particular, because there was no Brian Robinson, but that's not the norm. Brian Robinson is going to be around. He is going to be on the field. So I don't really like to use those games as an example, those first 3 games of the season, or 4 rather, without Brian Robinson, because that's not going to be the setup. Robinson is going to be in the lineup. He is going to be getting touches. That's not going to be Gibson's role as the primary ball carrier. So I look at the games where Brian Robinson was back from the situation, and I think the Green Bay game was Gibson's best performance. There were some games where, he had some moments like the Chicago game where they didn't give it to him at all the first half, which makes no sense to me. But he had that one drive where he pretty much dominated and got us all the way down the field. But the Green Bay game is where you saw him be explosive, change of direction, almost break it. And that's been, the story of Antonio Gibson. He almost broke it, I'm hoping that this year they get him out in space and he does break 2 or 3 of them, right? But we'll see what happens. I think the biggest thing to answer your question, they have to find a way to get him isolated on linebackers, which if you're looking to do that, the best way to do it is to have him start the playoff in the backfield and then motion him, and then you get your matchup. You see what you're working with. Now you can try to take advantage of that if you so choose. Excuse me. My guy, JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. John writes, what's going on, my man? On vacation with the missus, so I got a short time, but I did want to ask if Dotson will have higher numbers in year 2. Enjoy that vacay, man. Hell, I could use one of those my damn self, especially that we're getting into this last, because once July hits, ain't no time off, pretty much. I'm lying because I got something lined up, and I'll let y'all know as we get closer to that point. But that to me isn't even a real question, JP. I'm expecting 1,000 yards from him this year, to be honest with you, because of. So let me say something. I want to read this to y'all. So I always tell y'all I got a viewer, but y'all know him, Derek B.
Trees. And then, by the way,
Derek B is a guy that always plays devil's advocate. And so he had left a comment about, matter of fact, it was, I got to find it. He had left a comment during the live stream, I think last week, I think it was either that one. It had to be that one. It had to be the live stream. See if I can find it. And I want to read the comment to you, and then I want to react to it. So it had to be in here. Let's see if I can get to the comments. So see if I can find this comment. I should be able to track it down. All right, let's see if it's in here. If not, I can. Here it is, right here. So Derek Beef says, you're not going to like hearing this, but it needs to be said. 7 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, and 5 touchdowns is what prevents Terry from being him. He can't be him when division rival A.J. Brown laps him with 11 touchdowns and rookie wide receiver Jahan Dotson on his own team eclipses him with 7 in 4 fewer games. Only 4 of Terry's touchdowns were in the 16 games where we played meaningful football. 17 has another level to reach. Talking about career highs in touchdowns, 8 or more, yards, 1,300 or more this season. I think he can do it with Sam, but I have to see it. So my rebuttal to that, and it's the same thing I said when we were talking about Calvin Johnson last week. My guy Red Wing 01 played devil's advocate last week, and he said, hey, Calvin Johnson can't win the MVP if he's only got, I think the number he told me was like 4 or 5 touchdowns that year, or whatever it was. And, you know, Detroit's offense wasn't great that year, but it wasn't terrible. The thing that I had said was, who was taking attention away from Calvin Johnson to help him get into the end zone? When you think about Terry's touchdowns, and you look, first of all, those numbers are legit. You're right. Terry has never been a touchdown machine. However, if you look at what Terry's had to put up with, the 7 touchdowns that he got in his rookie season, because that's when he had 7, nobody knew who he was. So they weren't rolling coverage to his side. They weren't doubling him yet. They weren't bracket coveraging him yet because there was no one else. It's not like he had a road dog then. It's just they didn't know who he was. They weren't game planning to stop 17 then. So he was able to get into the end zone. And I remember one game, I think it was the Eagles late in that season, he caught a slant and ran for like 60-something yards for a touchdown. So there was some of that as well. The Eagles game, the first game of the season, the first game of his career, he gets loose for, a 60-yard touchdown over the top and should have had another one if Case Keenum didn't miss him in the third quarter. So a lot of those were way outside the red zone, you know what I mean? That type of thing. So as you become the guy and you're more prolific in what you do, and there's nobody else taking attention away from you, teams start keying in on you. And so now they get into the red zone, hey, 17 ain't scoring. Let it be 82, let it be 10. Let it be somebody. It can't be 17. And so you don't think Jahan Dotson benefited from the attention that Terry McLaurin gets? That's why he was singled up. That's why Jahan was allowed to eat. Because they weren't paying attention to him. He's a rookie. 17 is the guy we got to key in on to make sure he doesn't hurt us. Jahan can get one-on-one. If he wins, okay. We respect that, but we don't respect giving it up to Terry. That's dumb on our part. If he gets us, then something's wrong schematically. A.J. Brown comes in here and gets 11 touchdowns. One, the Eagles were high octane. So they had more shots at the end zone, and their quarterback was giving him, how many of those touchdowns, those 11 touchdowns, where Hurts just threw the bitch up, and Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown somehow came down with it with 2 dudes around, and even some of those you were like, bro, that's some terrible defense, because at least knock the shit down, right? It doesn't matter, though. I can think of one against Tennessee. I can think of about another one against the Steelers. I can think about the one in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, where you're like, come on, bro, you in perfect position. How the hell you managed to let that shit happen? But that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is he had Devontae Smith on the other side. You got Dallas Goedert. There are other guys that you have to focus in on. And, oh, by the way, they run the shit out of the football, specifically in the red zone. So there's other guys that you have to pay attention to that give him one-on-one matchups or opportunities to be able to get into the end zone. Whereas who's doing that for Terry? Who's taking attention of? Now, this year, I think with the offense having a chance to be more dynamic, more explosive, with a quarterback that can make all the throws, with an offensive coordinator who's fully aware of his weapons and what they're capable of, and spreading it around and taking some of that attention, with Jahan having the season he had last year and Curtis having the season he had last year, and the return of Logan Thomas, we hope, I think you're going to see the uptick in personal numbers for Terry, the touchdown numbers, as you mentioned, the yardage getting up over 1,300, as you mentioned. I think you're going to see all of that this year potentially, and I think Jahan is going to see his numbers go through the roof this year because of all of the different weapons and the explosiveness of this offense potentially. I think you could see not only the numbers for Jahan and Terry and company go up, I think you can see the averages per catch for these dudes go up too. I think Terry had a pretty significant average last year, though. I think his average might have been, or I might be thinking about Jahan. I thought one of them was up around 16 yards per catch. Let me check and see what Terry. Terry's at 15.5 last year, so that's pretty damn significant for a guy with the volume of a Terry McLaurin. For comparison purposes, AJ Brown I think was around like 11 yards a catch. Let me just double check. I don't want to be just throwing random shit out there, but I'm pretty sure AJ Brown was somewhere in that. I was just throwing shit out there. He was at 17 yards a pop last year, was AJ Brown. A lot of big catches in there. I forgot who I was looking at that was like at 11. Let me look at his teammate. Couldn't have been him either, because he had some big ass catches too. Had to be somebody else. I don't know who I was thinking of. He's at 12.6, so it might have been him. Devontae Smith was at 12.6, which isn't that good of a number for a receiver, but with high volume. He had 95 catches and pretty much the same yardage as Terry. So, not as much, damage in terms of individual yardage per catch, but still significant amount of damage was done there. But I think you're going to see an uptick in touchdowns for Terry just because you got to focus in on other dudes. When you have more targets that you have to focus in on, and you have shrewd play calling. Some of Terry's struggles have come from just lack of good play calling. You know how many touchdowns Terry would have had if we get in the red zone and they just run a slant to Terry? You know how many touchdowns he would have had? Like, it's not hard. Sometimes they make this shit harder than it needs to be. You know how many touchdowns? You don't think teams try to stop Travis Kelce in the red zone? You don't think where the hell is 87 at? Hey, let's put 2 on him. You don't think they're trying to take him out of the offense once they get in the red zone? He still scores. You know why? Because they draw that shit up. And, Mahomes is also a wizard off script to extend to get him the football. But a lot of times, they don't even need the extendo clip. He wins immediately because they're running these concepts that get him open. So, Justin Jefferson is another example. Who else is opposite of Justin Jefferson? Not many do. I bet you Justin Jefferson probably had like 13 touchdowns last year. I'm going to look it up because I'm interested. He had 8 last year. All right. And for all the shit that we talked, he had 8, 10, and 7 in his career to this point. So a bunch of yards, not a whole bunch of touchdowns. Like, it's hard to score touchdowns when the other team knows you the guy they're trying to get the ball to. And I bet you of all these, he's got 25 career touchdowns in 3 years, this Justin Jefferson. I bet you of these 25 touchdowns, probably like anywhere from 11 to 14 of them are 20 yards or more. Like, these are bombs, they're not red zone touchdowns. A lot of these are probably touchdowns outside of the red zone. It's a lot harder when you get into that condensed area when you're a playmaker to score because they're trying to take you away. You got to do a lot of your damage outside of the red zone. And Justin Jefferson only had 8 touchdowns last year. So, because he didn't have no help. That's why they spent the first round pick on a receiver to get him some help. It's hard for your receiver to be a stud when they're keying in on him and he doesn't have anybody else to take away coverage. That's what Terry's been dealing with all these years. So I'm going to defend Terry. But I think this is the year you couple the fact that now you got some young receivers, Curtis and Jahan in particular, who I think are ready to take some of that attention away from him to free him up a bit. But now you also got a quarterback that can get him the football anywhere on the field. And that matters too. So Dotson definitely going to have higher numbers. Let me look at Dotson. I think Dotson was up there. He might have been like 17 yards a catch. I think he was at 15. So Dotson had 35 catches for 523 and 7 touchdowns. So 14.9 average. So that's 15 yards a pop. Jahan's going to have more than 35 catches this year. You know what I'm saying? Like the 523, that's nothing. He's going to cook that. The question then becomes, can he match or surpass the touchdown numbers? Because for, a rookie, 7 touchdowns is pretty significant. So the question is, can he find a way to surpass the 7 touchdowns? But he's going to set new career highs in catches and yards if he's healthy. And I'm assuming health. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Trev writes, over under Gibson 1,000 total purpose yards on the season. So the question then becomes, is he still returning kickoffs? If the answer is no, then I have to ask the question of, what's his usage rate? How often is he touching the ball? Clearly, that's why you're asking the question. I think it's an easy slam dunk yes if he's returning kickoffs. That's not fair. I think you're assuming that he's not doing the kickoff responsibilities anymore, and you're just talking about your receiving yards and rushing yards combined. If that is the case, I am going to say yes, he does. I think he's going to have how much rush yards did he have last year? I'm going to say he's going to have 600 rushing yards this year. See how many he had last year. Antonio Gibson stats. Let's see. He had 546 last year on 149 attempts. I'd like to think he's going to be somewhere in that neighborhood. The biggest difference was he averaged 3.7 yards a tote last year. So the average wasn't there. Whereas in his rookie season, he's similar carries, 170, right? Only 21 more carries in his rookie season. But he had 795 yards, which was 4.7, damn near 5 yards a pop. So I think you're going to see an uptick in his yards per carry. I think the attempts may even go down, depending on how much they love Chris Rodriguez. You could see the attempts actually go down for him, but the yards per average go up, and hence his yards on the season go up. I think he's going to be somewhere in that 600-yard neighborhood as a pass catcher. Let me see what he did as a receiver in his rookie season, because I think this year his numbers are going to look kind of similar to his rookie season, where he was over 1,000 yards all purpose in his rookie season. So his rookie season, he had 795 yards rushing and 247 receiving. So he had 1,042 yards of all-purpose offense in his rookie season. I think you're going to see something similar to that this year. I think the receiving yards go slightly up. I think the rushing yards come down. I think the receiving yards will be like 380-something. The rush yards will be like 640-something, and it'll get you over 1,000, like it did in his rookie season when it was 795 rushing and 247 receiving. I think it's going to be like 682 rushing and another 347 receiving to give him like 1,050 or something like that. So yeah, I'll take the over on Gibby, 1,000 all-purpose yards. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes over under B-Rob 7.5 touchdowns on the season? Oh, I'm definitely taking the over on that. B-Rob, how many rush touchdowns did he have last year? Probably like 3. Again, let's not guess. I'm going to say he had 3 last year. Let's see. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last year. I know he didn't have many. So 2 last year. And the shame of it is he should have had probably like 6 or 7 if we would have just given him the ball in the red zone more. Obviously, they took the 1 touchdown away from him in the Giants game when they said Terry was illegally lined up. They didn't give it to him in the 49ers game when they should have. I mean, we got a bunch of games where we could say they could have given it to him and they didn't. But I think he's going to be the guy that they turn to when they get in the red zone to hand it off to. So I think he's going to have like 9 or 10 rush touchdowns this year. I expect us to score points. So if we're scoring points, it's going to be enough to go around for everybody. You know, that's the beauty of it, is when you putting points on the scoreboard, everybody eats. Everybody gets a little something. Is when you're struggling, that's when it's not enough to go around. Hence Terry's low numbers of touchdowns. The running backs really didn't have any say-so in the end zone department. So I think that's going to all change this year. So I'm going to take the over on that. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, over under defense, a half a turnover per game on average on the season. So in order for that to be the case, how many did they have last year? Let's see. Because half a turnover, that's not a lot. You're assuming 1 a game is 17. So you're saying that they would only force 9 turnovers, 8 turnovers on the season? Like, that can't be what you were trying to convey there. Let's see what the turnover number was for the league last year. Most forced turnovers. In NFL 2022. So Dallas led the league. They forced 33 turnovers last year. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Is the number is 2 a game, right? That would put you at 34. That's the high water mark. The 49ers had 30, forced 30. The Patriots forced 30. The Eagles forced 27. The Bills forced 27. So Washington last year, conversely, let's see how much. See how many turnovers Washington forced last year. How many turnovers did Commanders force in 2022? Let's see. Washington forced all right. I could just go to ESPN. Theirs is so much easier to get to. So I'm going to go there and find it. and it can't be too high. I can tell you that right now. So defensively, let's see if they got everybody got individuals. Let's go to the team. Here we go. All right. Turnovers wise, we had 16 interceptions and see how many fumbles we forced and recovered. I don't see it. I feel like that would have been easy. That would have been some information that I could easily find, but seems to be eluding me right now. All right. Fumbles. Okay. So we lost 7 fumbles last year. That's not what I'm looking for, though. Anyway, the number that I'm looking for, you have it at a half a turnover a game, which would mean it's got to be higher than that. I'll just say that. The Cowboys were the best in the NFL last year, and they were at 33 turnovers forced. That's pretty much 2 a game. It's just slightly under 2 a game. You're not going to get to that, I don't think. You got to be forcing turnovers at a pretty high clip to get to 33. But can Washington force 18 turnovers on the season? Sure, why not? That's 1 a game, right? That averages out to just a shade over 1 a game. So I think a nice solid number would be like 22, 23, somewhere where you're approaching 1.5 a game. And that 24, 25 range would be approaching that. Excuse me. So yeah, I think that's probably where you would like to be. Going back to the Dallas statistic, let's see. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams had less than 19 turnovers forced. We were one of those teams. So that information is locked on this particular site. But the meat and potatoes of the league, let's see. I said 23. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Half of the league had 23 or more turnovers forced on the season. Like, to me, that number should be somewhere in that 23, 24, 25 range, which you should be aiming for. If you can do that, take care of the ball relatively well, you're going to be in the plus category of the plus or minus. Our problem was we didn't take care of the football. We turned it over way too much. We had quarterback fumbles. We had interceptions thrown. I think if I had to guess, and let's see. You guys are usually pretty good at putting the information down here. I probably should have just asked y'all. Y'all could have looked it up for me. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. You guys have it. Washington had 18, is what you guys are saying. So yeah, last year that a half a turnover a game, you'd have to be like at 8 or 9. I know I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, but I don't need to go to MIT or Harvard to be able to do the math on that. That number needs to be closer to 2 a game. 1.5 was probably where you should have put that. That would have made it compelling. I would have pushed probably at 1.5, but at a half a turnover, yeah, you damn right we'll have more than that. If you don't, then something's not right. I think the number that you should be aiming for is a turnover and a half per game, and that'll put you somewhere in that 24-25 neighborhood, which is where most of the league is, as I just told you. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, over under Ron fired by week 3 after Hard Knocks. Yeah, there's no way Ron is getting fired after 3 weeks of football. We could be 0-3 and he's still not getting fired after 3 weeks of football. This is not happening. Jay Gruden didn't even get fired after 3 weeks of football, and we were 0-3. Okay, so and his seat was way hotter than what Ron's is going into the season. So it's no way. So I'll definitely take the under, the over on that. Trevor Pat, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, over under 1.5 fights on joint practices with Hard Knocks. So I really think so. You're gonna get at least 2 scraps with joint practices. So yeah, I take the over on that slightly. I think you're gonna get 2. Now the key is to keep them at a minimum. Like, don't let them turn into what the Cowboys had with the Raiders like 3 or 4 years ago, where dudes was swinging helmets and all kinds of crazy shit. Like, don't let it get to that stage. Don't let it escalate. And I think they've got a coach that's going to make sure he keeps everything clean, and we've got a coach that's going to do a pretty good job of letting his players know, hey, we're not dealing with no funny business. We sending your ass straight to the locker room, and if we do that, we finding you XYZ. Like, we ain't come down here for no bullshit. We came down here to get some real work done. Like, they're gonna let their players know. Now, the emotions get the best of you. You've been hitting your teammates all training camp. You finally get to see somebody different. Yeah, trust me, they're gonna be 1 or 2 scraps. So I'll say 2. They won't be anything necessarily malicious or crazy, but you're gonna get 2 scraps. So yeah, I'll take the over on that. Quan Legend, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Quan writes, did you notice Sam mentioned accountability when talking about his ability to rally the troops in NC? Nice to know Sam and EB have similar mindsets. One of the best qualities you can have as a quarterback is to be able to lead. Now, look, this will never change. You have to be able to play. No one's listening to someone that isn't any good. You know what I mean? Like, Carson Wentz can't be telling dudes what they can and can't do or what they should or shouldn't do, and you over there on the bench because you stink. Like, you got to be talented and you got to be playing well, but your ability to get guys to follow you is probably the single biggest reason why guys succeed or fail in the NFL. Again, mentally, you got to be tough. You got to have thick skin. You got to be able to overcome adversity, all of that stuff. You got to be able to play. You got to be talented. You got to make plays when plays are there to be made, but you also got to make plays and make things happen in crucial and tough situations. The game on the line. Situationally, you got to be really good, right? That's what separates Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and the top tier quarterbacks in the league, is with the game on the line, these dudes, they throwing darts. They getting their team down the field and into the end zone. But you got to be able to lead. You got to be able to lead. And Sam has that ability. Tyrone White, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Tyrone writes, Jason Wright was on Rio's show and he said he wants it. From a Jason Wright standpoint, that makes sense. For Jason Wright, he's trying to sell tickets. He's on the business side. What's going to help you more? Not letting people in or making people feel like they're a part of this year's team? They bring Hard Knocks to Washington. They let the cameras into their facility. You know why we like the Commander's Log series? Because it makes us feel like we're closer to the team. They're giving us inside, behind-the-scenes access that we rarely get. You expand that to Hard Knocks, and you're getting that for, 4 weeks straight? Everybody's watching, not just the Washington fans are watching Hard Knocks. NFL fans, football fans are watching Hard Knocks. So it changes how everybody views your football team. And then it makes people feel a level of attachment that maybe they wouldn't have felt had they not watched Hard Knocks, had they not fallen in love with the humor of Curtis Samuel, right? Because he's a funny dude. I think we all know that. We've watched enough, mic'd ups and things of that nature to know he's a funny dude. But now all of a sudden you add in the element of, Montez Sweat doesn't say a lot to the media, but now you see this Hard Knocks and he's talking his ass off and you're like, yo, I fucks with Tez, man. I rock with Tez. Now all of a sudden you're like, yo, I want to go to a game. Or I want to do this. I want to, now I want season tickets. Yeah, it's very beneficial if you're Jason Wright. I'd be advocating for the shit too. You're damn right. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, been on my mind. People bring up the fact that Sam and Jalen Hurts are the same height, so height's not a big issue. But then I remember that Hurts plays behind a 6'1" center while ours is 6'5". I mean, the offensive line's height can make a difference, but ultimately what is going to make the difference is, can you stop the guy in front of you from collapsing the pocket and making Sam feel like everything is closing in around him? If Sam has a clean pocket, he won't even be close to the offensive line. He'll have plenty of space to throw the football, find the little lanes. Look, when you're a shorter quarterback, you're gonna have to find windows, lanes to throw the football. That's never gonna change for you. You're not 6'5", you're not 6'6". You can't clear the line, see everything. You're going to have to throw through windows. You're going to have to anticipate. Sam's been doing that his entire life. I don't worry about things like that. But, when it becomes a problem that your center is 6'5", when he's getting pushed back and the pocket's collapsing and you're trying to get rid of the ball, and now you got this tall-ass guy in front of you instead of a shorter guy. That's when it starts to really make a difference. As long as Nick Gates is holding his own, I don't think it'll be that big of an issue, honestly speaking. But I have heard that a lot. Again, I don't really concern myself with size anymore. That used to be a real debate. But I see 6'5" guys, 6'6" guys like Justin Herbert getting balls batted all the time because he's throwing 3/4, And then I see dudes that are 6 feet that don't get balls batted all that often at all, So it's just, again, how comfortable are you finding the windows? How good is your offensive line at keeping the integrity of the pocket? I don't, until it's a problem, it's not a problem. It's not something I'm really worried about. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Trev writes, can we still not talk about Ron doing dirty, the man that outshined Sam Howell in the combine and mopped the floor with him in camp last year? Don't give me he's really first, second round quarterback talk. Hashtag rip Cole Kelly. I knew this was going Cole Kelly. I knew you were going straight to Cole Kelly. Real talk, though. Cole Kelly was a camp arm last year. I don't even think he made it out of the first round of cuts, if he even made it to camp last year. We knew he didn't stand a chance. Seriously, I want to see the quarterback that they signed, the undrafted kid, get an opportunity, man. I would really like to see him. Like, look, I don't expect to see a lot of Sam or Jacoby in the preseason. I don't. I wouldn't be shocked if neither one of them played a single snap in the second half of any of these preseason games. With that said, we know they're not playing a single snap in the third and final preseason game for sure. All right, maybe Jacoby gets a possession or two, but the likelihood is if they still got both of those young quarterbacks, Sam played that entire – he was the third stringer last year. He played the entire final preseason game against the Ravens last year, the entire game. So I'm hoping that they don't do the Fordham kid dirty, Tim DeMorat. I hope they don't do him dirty and give all of the most of the reps to Jake Fromm, because I really think they like Jake Fromm. I can't put my finger on it. Why? He stinks. You know, let me see what Tim DeMorat can do. But they'll be seeing in practice, you know, whatever, you know, amount of reps that they get, and they'll figure out which one of those guys they're more comfortable with. Obviously, Fromm is the veteran. He's been in the NFL. He was here last year, so they're more comfortable with him. Obviously, he'll get the first crack at it, but I want to see what Tim DeMorat can do. Like, you want me to be intrigued by the third and fourth quarter of these preseason games when ain't shit really going on? Put Tim DeMorat in there. Don't force feed me Jake Fromm, because I'm not interested. Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, not to mention we got a 6'4" left guard, a 6'6" right guard. Now we've seen Heineke play behind hulking guards like Sheriff and Flowers, but I worry about having such a huge interior offensive line will hurt his ability to see the middle. Again, I don't really worry about that all too much. Like I said, Sam's been playing with offensive linemen his whole life that have been, you know, bigger guys. You know, I'm assuming that the guys at North Carolina were probably 6'4", 6'5" at the guard position. Last year, by the time he got in, Chris Paul is what, 6'5", I believe, 6'4". He's no less than 6'4". What do they have him listed at? I'm gonna check real quick. Chris Paul is listed at 6'4". So he was 6'4". He was in that last start of the season. I'm trying to think of who was at the other guard position in week 18 last year when he made that start. I'd be lying to you if I said I remember who was at guard. It probably was Andrew Norwell. If I had to guess. Andrew Norwell got to be every bit of 6'6". I think he is. Yeah, he's 6'6". So I think Norwell played in week 18 last year. Let me see. They might have how many games he played in last year, how many games he started. Nah, he didn't play in the Dallas game. Well, that's where Chris Paul was, left guard. So, duh. Who's at right guard is the question. I don't really know who played in that game. Let's see. I'm going to go to Sam Cosmi. Maybe he started that last game of the season last year. See, you got me doing shit that I ain't even got no business doing. I'm looking up stuff that's insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but I'm curious now. Now I'm a dog with a bone, and I'm not going to stop until I figure this out. So let's assume they got Sam listed as a tackle, which they do here. See if he started. He started in the Dallas game last year. So now let me see if Cornelius Lucas started in that game. I know Charles Leno played in that game, because when he flexed in the end zone. So no. So he might have been at tackle in that game. Sam Cosmi might have been. I know Leno played. Cosmi played. Who was at center in week 18? We were probably down to our third center by then. I couldn't even tell you who was at center last year. Larson had already gotten hurt. It was probably Wes Schweitzer at center in week 18. You know what I could do, which would probably be a lot easier, is to just go to the photos from that game, and I'll probably be able to see who the offensive line was. Again, here I am looking up shit that don't make a damn difference, a bit of difference. All right. Trey Turner was in there, it looks like, at the other guard. So Wes Schweitzer is at center. Trey Turner was at one guard. Chris Paul was at the other guard. Charles Leno was at tackle. Cosmi was at the other tackle. That's what it looked like. Trey Turner is like 6'3". He a shorter guy. Yeah. So I don't put too much stock into that, though. But I hear what you're saying. I get your concerns. They could ultimately be valid. But until they become a problem, it's not something that I really worry about too much. We'll see. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Trevor Patch writes, Louie got Tony Wiley doing his audio 2019 style. First of all, Tony Wiley wasn't in charge of that stuff. He was, I think his job was to, the guy that you heard, three more in terms of questions. He was like the spokesman, the guy that handled the PR stuff. I don't think he was like in charge of like audio and shit like that. But whatever, I deserve that. I'm not. I was being slow tonight. I deserve that. I deserve every bit of that. I was being real slow tonight. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Right. On a related note, do you think Cosmi's height will affect him against interior rushers who can get under his pads? That's more of an issue on the inside. It could be. He talked about, one of the biggest differences being the immediate contact being at guard versus tackle, where there's a bit of a runway as a tackle. You get out of your stance, you kick slide, and you prepare for contact. Whereas with guard, as soon as the ball snaps, there's instant contact, Yeah, that could be a problem. Cosmi's like 6'6", So it could definitely be a problem if he doesn't play with good pad level, if he doesn't learn how to, anchor down a lot sooner. It's not like he's never played guard before. It's just getting used to playing it on a consistent basis. That's why I wasn't a fan of them yo-yoing him in and out of the lineup, switching positions and all of that stuff last year. But he's been getting all the reps, and, we'll really start to get a feel for him in camp and into the preseason. Yeah, that could definitely be a problem because you get those shorter guys that's 6'1" in there who are just like bowling balls or fire hydrants, and they're just strong as hell, and they play with a low center of gravity. Yeah, that shit could become a damn problem. Absolutely. So I don't know until and I'm, again, a glass half full guy. So until it becomes a problem, it's not for me. I'm always going to give you the benefit of the doubt until you show me that you don't deserve that. So for Cosmi, I'm giving him a clean slate, see what he can do. And then he's got to show me that he's not capable of, containing a guy that's got a lower center of gravity that plays, at that level where he's going to have to bend his knees and not bend at his hips. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, everybody sneak asking EB if they see Pat and Sam. That's so not fair to Sam, because what Mahomes is ultimately got a shot at being the greatest quarterback in NFL history already. And what he's done these last 5 years? I mean, he's only been in the league 6 years, and he's been a starter for 5 of them, right? 2018 was his first year starting. He came in the league in 2017, goes to the AFC Championship and loses to Brady in 18. They go to the Super Bowl and win it in 19. They go back to the Super Bowl in 20 and lose. They go to the AFC Championship game and lose to Cincinnati in 2021. And then they go back to the Super Bowl and win it in 2022. So he's been a starter for 5 years, been to the AFC Championship all 5 years, been to the Super Bowl 3 of those 5 years, and won 2 of them. So again, that kind of trajectory, he's on pace to go and rival Tom Brady for the most Super Bowl wins. And I mean, he's already passed Aaron Rodgers in terms of how many Super Bowls he's won. So you can't ask, does Sam have some of Pat in him? That's not fair, because there aren't many guys in the league that have that in them. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, over under Lou, half arm wrestle wins over Heineke. Oh, I don't know Heineke, man. I just know I'd crush him in an arm wrestling contest. I don't have small arms, so I have small hands, but I don't have small arms. So I think I'd get him. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, over under Lou runs a half episode of Come Correct. Ooh, that's some real shade right there, man. That's a nice little burn. I got you on that one. I'm gonna take the under on that. I want to do more of that, and I will eventually. I just got to get to a place where that's feasible. I'm not there right now. I put out a pilot episode last year to see if there was an appetite for it. It was okay. I thought it would do better than what it did. It was all right. What I fear is that if the guest isn't someone within the division, then most of you won't watch. So again, is it worth my time? So there's a lot of things that go into it in my thought process. You know, having LB on was the reason I had him on in particular was because there was an appetite for that. And if he can't draw numbers, if me having him on can't move the needle, then me having a Cincinnati Bengals fan and debating with them isn't going to move the needle. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, that one did okay. But it didn't do what I thought it could do. So it made me rethink, is this what I want to do? Or do I need to pivot and go in a different direction? I may pick that up and come back to it because I like the concept, but it's got to be done in a more tactful way, I believe. So anyway, I hear your jokes. All right. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JL Smooth. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Need an update on Pops, man. How is that going? Need you to tell me what's going on. Even if you don't leave that in the comment section and you want to DM me, I just want to know, how is everything going with your dad? JL Smooth writes, what's up, Lou? What's going on? 105.3 JL Smooth says, hope all is well, my guy. Likewise. Been a minute. I can always tell. Says the Diggs situation, seen him and Allen dapping it up. It's got to be a riff with Dorsey, in my opinion. I'm just glad it's June. That was weird, wasn't it? He came in, he left, and he didn't tell anybody he was leaving. And your coach steps to the podium and he says, it's a concern. I'm concerned. And I'm like, that is very odd. And then his agent comes out and says it's nothing. Diggs is like, y'all over here capping. And so he shows up the next day. Everybody's singing Kumbaya, and there's nothing to see here. Yeah, that's some weird shit, man. Interesting. That's something to keep an eye on, because Diggs is one of those dudes that has one of those personalities that he can wear out a welcome fairly quickly, or he can become one of those dudes that goes from 0 to 100 real quick and just signed a contract extension with you guys to finish his career in Buffalo, a year or two ago, to now 1 out, because I do think he wants to play with his brother. So I do think there's a little bit of that. It may be more so his brother wanting to play with him, but I think he wants to play with his brother. So I'm always a little leery on guys like that who seem to be somewhat volatile, but he should be fine. He should be fine. I think everything's fine there. But it was weird. I'm not going to lie to you. It was very weird. Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Red Wing 01 writes, I don't think Sam's height will be an issue. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Also, there's a lot of talk about us being interested in Kareem Hunt. I brought that up on the show yesterday. And I said, believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. It's not lion season, though. It's clickbait season. And what's the easiest, lowest hanging fruit you can have? Kareem Hunt needs a job. Guy that he got the best production out of, or the guy that got the best production out of him is now in Washington. Seems like a good fit, right? Irregardless of what our running back position already looks like. If you don't trust Chris, trust Chris Rodriguez, then Kareem Hunt makes sense. And this was a conversation that I had probably like 3 weeks or a month ago. Somebody, I'm trying to think of who told me. Chris Rodriguez showed up to the rookie minicamp at 244 pounds. I was like, man, get out of here. No way. He didn't show up that out of weight, out of shape. And nobody said anything media member wise. Nobody asked any questions of him. So I was just like, nah, there's no way. And then that same person, I'm trying to think. I think it was Tim. I was on Tim's show. That's who it was. It was Tim. I was on Tim's show, and he was like, yo, Chris Rodriguez showed up at rookie minicamp at 244 pounds. I'm like, get out of here, Tim. Ain't no way. No way he showed up that out of shape. The man was listed at like 225 at the combine. Ain't no way he showed up here 20 pounds heavier than his combine weight. Then he provided me with the sheet for all of the rookies. Height, weight, all the stuff that they had for them. When they came in, they weighed all of the guys, all of that good stuff. He was 244. Now, is that a problem? I don't know. Maybe they have no issues with him being 244. Maybe they said, bro, by the time we get in training camp, you better be back down to your combine weight or the weight that you played at. Whatever you're comfortable at, whatever weight you played at Kentucky, that's what you better be. And they know what weight he played at. They've already asked him. They know. He might have played at 230 at Kentucky and got down to 225 for the combine so he'd run faster or whatever the case may be. If he even ran a 40 at the combine. Probably ran a 40 at his pro day, not the combine, but that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is, if they're not happy with him, because think about it this way. After Chris Rodriguez, there's only maybe there. So I remember very vividly saying after the Week 18 performance from what is his name? Oh, I forget his name. Let me just look it up. I'm not in the mood to bust my brain trying to think about somebody's name. Jared Patterson. There it is. And I didn't even have to look him up. Jared Patterson. He played well in Week 18. I was like, hey, if that's how he's going to play, I wouldn't mind seeing more. You know they like Jonathan Williams. So you telling me Kareem Hunt is really in play here when you already got Brian Robinson, you already got Antonio Gibson, you drafted a guy that is probably going to make this team in Chris Rodriguez, you still have Jonathan Williams, and you still have Jared Patterson on the roster as well. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And Kareem Hunt is a guy that was complaining about touches last year in Cleveland behind Nick Chubb. If he's complaining about getting touches behind Nick Chubb, what do you think gonna happen this year when Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are getting the bulk of the workload? Like that don't even make sense. Now, if something were to happen to Chris Rodriguez, okay, I can see Kareem Hunt, because then you would be replacing what they saw in Chris Rodriguez in the draft as another guy that could be your first or second down back, and less of a Gibby replacement, more of a, hey, we need to do that. If anything happens to Brian Robinson, we can keep the party going. Gibson doesn't have to change his role on the team. We just insert this next dude and everything else stays the same. That makes sense. But if you like Rodriguez, that makes absolutely zero sense. I'm not buying none of that shit. I think all of that is clickbait. DC Dude, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. DC Dude writes, seeing that big ass ring the KC players got tonight makes me want one even more now. Did you see that big ass ring? Nah, I haven't. I mean, the rocks are getting bigger and bigger, man. These rings, it's amazing when you see like the rings from like the 91 Super Bowl team, and they're now it's still big. You know, the ring itself is still big, but the diamonds in the joints now compared to the ones from 91, you're right. It's not even close. You know, it's child's play. These rings are just iced out, man. And they're huge. When dudes actually wear their Super Bowl ring, like Bieniemy, I saw him with the one from 2019 when he was being introduced here. This shit is like, they're almost like comical how big they are. Like, they're like caricature rings. Like, the ring is like this big, dude. Like, if you're sitting there and you're gripping a pen and you're writing, the ring is like this big on your hand. Like, the shit is that's why these dudes usually don't wear it. Like, the only time they wear it is like when they're trying to stunt. Impossible. That thing has to weigh every bit of 3 or 4 pounds. Seriously. I might be over exaggerating. Those things are huge. What I wouldn't give for one of those, though. I was looking at the Nuggets parade. You know, I didn't watch it. I just saw a shot of all the people. God, what I wouldn't give to be a part of one of those. It'd be crazy if we had one of those. It'd be crazy. Honestly, it'd be like a week or 2 long party for me. We won the Super Bowl. Anyway. Dream. Oh man, I digress. That's the last super chat. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Live. Sorry for the inconvenience with the Jahan Dots. I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for that. I deserve it. I was tripping. But anyway, I'm about to be starting a series. I guess I'll give you guys the heads up. I'm going to be starting a series here. You may be interested. You may not be interested. It's cool. This is more for me than anything else. 32 and 32. I'm going to be previewing every single team in the league's season over the next month. Kind of filling the void of not a lot of content. Gives me some busy work to do. Keeps me in the know with these teams since I don't do the draft, wrap up series anymore. Don't really know who drafted who. The first, second, third round guys, the first 2 days. Don't really know much thereafter for the rest of the league necessarily. So that'll give me a chance to learn that. A quick refresher on some of the free agency moves that were made by all these teams in the league. It's so easy to forget that, Calvin Ridley is playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. It's easy to forget that, right? Because he was suspended all last year. They made a trade for him. These are the types of, shows that will allow me to be up to speed on, all the guys on franchise tags. I forgot that Tony Pollard was on a franchise tag. I just was thinking about, Joshua Jacobs. And I was thinking about Saquon Barkley. I forgot all about Tony Pollard being on the franchise tag. So that's 3 running backs on the franchise tag. When you do shows like that, where you cover, another team, you realize certain things, So anyway, just let you guys know, I'll be starting that series probably next week because I really want to be done by the time teams report to training camp. Really, I just need to be done by the time Washington reports to training camp, which is the 27th. So I got plenty of time. But, the Hall of Fame game teams usually come to camp about a week earlier than everybody else because they're playing a preseason game earlier than everyone else. So I'd like to be done by the time those teams get to training camp. But again, we'll see. That is my goal. So without any further ado, I don't want to hold you guys up. I appreciate y'all kicking it with the kid tonight. If anything happens noteworthy, I will reappear like magic. But assuming that everything goes quiet and dark like it's supposed to, we'll fill the time with a bunch of hypotheticals, a lot of questions being asked of you guys. I have no problems doing that. But I'm going to be working on these 32 and 32. That's going to be my next goal. So that, and also MusicHead University. If you are a music fan and you enjoy the Louie T Network, I mashed the 2 things together, and voila, you get MusicHead University. If you want to see a different side of me, not too much different. I mean, I am who I am, and you get what you get. But music, as you should know, music changes things, gives you a different vibe. I'm a little bit standoffish when I talk about Washington, because it's sports, a lot of bravado and, a lot of testosterone. You get chesty when somebody's talking about your squad. I can get into a music debate with somebody and not get chesty, But music is usually, it makes me feel good, Sports, not all the time, makes me feel good. So you're going to get a different side of me a little bit. But if you're interested, again, if you're not going to watch, don't sub up. If you're going to support the channel, you're going to watch the videos, you're going to be a part of the conversation, please, by all means, come check it out. We're having a lot of fun over there, and I'm enjoying the conversations with people, and it's been a lot of fun. And I hope those of you who have joined me over there are enjoying yourselves, because I definitely am. So that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys in the near future. I want to send a quick shout out to my guy, JL Smooth. I saw that you gifted a number of people memberships tonight. So couldn't leave without saying thank you so much. Shout out to my guy, JL Smooth. Mob Squad, stand up. We in a building. Y'all know what it is. Shout out to JL Smooth for gifting a number of new members. Welcome to the squad. With that said, y'all get out of here, and I will see you guys next time. Happy Father's Day. Happy Dad's Day to all of the real dads out there holding it down. I'll see you guys next time. God bless. Good night.
The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.